I'm on mute.
It is better, so we don't hear anything in the background.
Okay,
And when they want to, they can either raise a hand or,
unmute.
yeah.
Yep. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we're good. We're good to start.
Okay, great. Okay, well, it's nice to see everybody after such a long break and to try to get back into a routine. I'm sure a lot of you have been in your own routines with your own areas of endeavor. So I'd like to start off by continuing our conversation that we had briefly when we had a presentation by the planning department, and look at a couple of possible motions that we might be able to discuss and then put through if everybody is in agreement. So I'll start there because I think I was listening the other day and they're saying that Barrie rental housing is now approaching the same level as Toronto, which is a little disturbing for seniors who are looking for accommodations or rental accommodations that they can afford, basically. So I'd like to, yeah.
Donna, John Broussard told me the other day that we're 4th across the country for rentals, number 4.
Yeah, I was on the news, it says we're almost equal now. So I don't know whether that's changed since the last stat, but you're right. Yeah, that's still pretty high on the list. There's 3 things I want to look at. So I'll put them forward to you and then we can have a discussion. The first thing is I wanted to look at some form of a support motion for co-housing opportunities for the city of Barrie to support those opportunities in some form. And maybe Anne Marie can help us on how we can phrase this so that we do it effectively. The second thing I want to look at is prioritizing seniors for admission to affordable housing units and how we can go about doing that. And then the third thing is how do we encourage the city to promote seniors complexes and also to give priority to developers that want to either promote complexes that are for seniors or have developments that will adopt their housing so that seniors can age in place. So I wanted to look at those 3 issues and see what the group thinks about those comments. So I'll open the floor to comments. Gwen? Can't hear you. Unmute. Gwen, unmute.
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
I had a meeting on January 18th with all 4 of our MPs and MPPs regarding co-housing, and the fact that I had 2 requests for them. I wanted them provincially to go after the insurance companies because they were trying to charge commercial rates for co-housing when it's just a residence with 4, 5, or 6 people. And the second thing, federally, I wanted them to go after CMHC to back mortgages for co-housing, which would make them then more affordable. Because if CMHC would back it, the banks would be more likely to give mortgages to co-housing. So those were the 2 things I was going after. I followed it up with a meeting last Tuesday with the shadow ministers for housing and seniors from BC and Saskatchewan, and John Broussard hosted that. Again, they were unfamiliar in BC and Saskatchewan with co-housing. They seemed very interested. I also had mentioned that I had spoke last fall to Habitat for Humanity here in Barrie, and they were quite interested in co-housing and thought they would look into it. I did mention that the minister from BC said he knew the head of Habitat for Humanity and he would speak to him. I came away from the meeting feeling really good. I've also asked Carpet Office to see if they can arrange a meeting for me with Doug Ford to promote co-housing. I think they're desperate for help right now and just ideas to help them out of the situation. So You never know whether I'll get it or not, but if I do, I'll let you all know. And that's the latest.
So,
Can I
yes,
ask a question? I'm just wondering, Gwen, how did things turn out with that housing, was it Sulphur House? in
Sorry, I
Barrie?
can't hear you.
How did that turn out with Sulphur House? Barrie?
how did you come out with co-housing?
How did I come out with it?
Or how
No.
was it?
No, I'm asking, how have things turned out with that co-house
Oh,
in
okay.
Oh,
Barrie?
in Barrie? Well, last year, the developer who owned it, just shortly after we had all the alterations done and the elevator put in, he had an aneurysm followed by several strokes. And so the house was in limbo because we couldn't do anything without his signature. Shelley Raymond was contacted about 2 weeks ago by the son, and maybe he has power of attorney now with his mother. Anyhow, something's been resolved. So I know Shelley was showing it on Saturday, but it just basically sat there for a year. We couldn't do anything.
Okay.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any questions about what co-housing is? Does everybody on the panel understand co-housing? Any questions about? Okay, Pat and then Anna Marie.
I guess I kind of have a basic idea, but if you wouldn't mind kind of explaining the concept, Gwen, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So it can be a new build or a rebuild with 4, 5, or 6 occupants. Each occupant would own, as tenants in common, a sitting room, a bathroom, and a bedroom. All the other areas are common, such as your laundry, your kitchen, etc. You share the expenses. In a new build, all the expenses are equal. In a rebuild, because all the units are slightly different sizes, there is a formula for property taxes to make sure it's fair, but all other utilities are shared equally. So it's a very accommodative way of still being on the property ladder, the real estate ladder, having a say in what goes on in a house. The first occupants of a house will determine the rules, you know, smoking, pets, etc. They can be changed, but all have to be in favor. If someone were to leave because, well, of very serious health problems or death, etc., there's a 3-month clause where the next person coming in rents for 3 months. They get 3 months to decide if they want to live there, and the other occupants get 3 months to decide if they want that person to live there. And there's a very, quite a procedure to put the right people together. There's 150 questions and a visit to their home to make sure they're not hoarders. It's been well thought through. You don't just throw people together. So there are so many good things. Probably does away with elder abuse, because with eyes and ears of 4, 5, or 6 families watching, it's unlikely you'll have elder abuse. Your costs go down because, of course, you're sharing. It does away with isolation. You are more likely to eat properly. Even if you do your breakfast and lunch separately, you're all going to sit around the table and have your dinner together. We call them the ABCs. A is the Golden Girls. B, where they would require help a couple of times a week. That would be housekeeping, etc. And a C house where somebody comes in every day of the week. Of course, they share those costs equally. So if you're paying $20 an hour for somebody to come in, but there's 5 of you, it's really $4 an hour. If you have a need of extensive help, you would be required to pay for that individually. It's not shared by everybody else. It's to keep things equal. But there's somebody to go for a walk with. There's somebody, you know, if you want to go for a holiday, you just pick up and leave. You don't have to worry about the house. So we feel it will keep people happier and healthier much longer, less likely to have dementia if you're socially interacting all the time. And they become their own family in a way. It also is very helpful to family of the individuals in the house, because if they are geographically not close, they know somebody else is there if their father or mother has a fall or whatever. Because I'm sure if somebody hasn't shown up by 11 o'clock in the morning, somebody's going to knock on their door and ask if they're all right. So there are many, many good things about it. It also keeps us out of the government purse. So I think they should really like that idea. And nobody wants to go into long-term care homes these days unless they absolutely have to.
Okay, that's not at all what I thought, so thank you very much.
Okay, Anne Marie?
Yes, thank you, Donna. And maybe it's a question back to Gwen that I had, because I know we talk about co-housing, and I had the privilege of walking through the home in Barrie with you, and I think Shelley, when it was just finishing its renovations.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if there's because I know we're talking broadly on the agenda today around, affordability around rental rates and even getting into the market in Barrie, but also then when we talk a bit about co-housing and then retirement home and kind of that continuum of what's offered. And so would you say co-housing fits at a particular spot around affordability, or while it has all those benefits, is there something that we should appreciate around when we're talking about this? Would we consider it a more affordable option than retirement home? Or is there a sense of what that particular co-housing structure would cost an individual?
Definitely cheaper than a retirement home because they start at about $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a house to sell, you can buy into co-housing and you'd have money left over. If you don't have a house to sell, they could perhaps be built with rental in mind. And your rental would depend, of course, on the size of the house and size of your suite and everything. But it would definitely be cheaper. Well, let's just say you can't buy, if you were on OAS and GIS, you can't afford anything in Barrie. You just couldn't. There's no way. In the home, which in Barrie, which is kind of a luxurious home really, because it's in such a nice area and so handy to everything and has an elevator and all that. I think the minimum rents in there would have to be about $1,500. But in another area of Barrie where the house wasn't so costly in the first place, the rents could be cheaper, or the cost could be cheaper.
Can I just comment on that? The lady that came and spoke to us last year, if everybody remembers, the one that where they had divided the house up into rentals, there would have to be some good requirements, and I don't know where the Tenants Act would come into it in regards to how the house is, the maintenance in the house, and also there was a lot of problems with the house itself and the safety for the seniors moving in there. So I'm not sure how the Landlord and Tenants Act would be around that. I think co-housing ownership is probably a better option than rental if possible, only because if you have issues with the individual who is you're renting from, then it becomes a landlord and tenant issue, and the city has limited ability to do anything. Gwen?
Shelley and I did talk about that. And in the co-housing, we thought the rent should, like the tenant, should be responsible for the utilities, and that a certain amount of the rent goes into the fund for repairs and maintenance. We specifically thought about that to take it away from the developer so that things get done in a timely manner.
Yeah. So that again, if it's a developer, you still have landlord and tenant. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but because it is rental, it's Landlord and Tenant Act comes into play as opposed to the government, which I'm not sure how you'd overcome that, because then you get delinquent landlords, and that might become a problem with some individuals. Anybody else got comments on the landlord tenant with the rental aspect? They can help me out here. Any other comments? Pat, you're on mute.
saw that. It seems to me it's a whole different concept, being like the person going into it, the landlord themselves would know a co-ownership versus that home that we talked about was kind of a on the sly rental unit.
Mhm.
I don't think I think it's two different eggs.
Yeah, I agree if it's ownership, but if it's strictly rental, I think that's where the issue might
But
come
if you
in.
have some people that are rental and most of the home is owned, like, or are you talking the whole unit's going to be rented?
I'm talking the whole unit's renting.
Then you're not really co-ownership. It's a different,
Right.
whole different thing.
Yeah. Okay. So what I think Gwen mentioned the 3-month temporary period for rental to ensure that the person coming in was a fit with the other 3, or how many would be in the unit, which I think is a fantastic idea because that ensures that everybody lives together in a good relationship, which you need in that kind of environment. So Gwen, you had a comment?
I was going to say that most municipalities gave Shelley a hard time. She took them to the OMB twice and won both times. You do not need any, it's just a house in a residential zone. That's all it is.
Mhm.
And you might need permits, such as we did need in the one in Barrie, because we were adding bathrooms and an elevator. And we did have to go and get permits, but that was it. You do not need, it's the province passed it officially last year, co-housing. So you do not need to go around in circles to do co-housing,
Okay.
which seems to be a misrepresentation.
Yeah, I agree with ownership. I think that's a great idea. Again, I just reiterate, I think straight rental is an issue that would have to be resolved. So on this issue, let's talk about Tara. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Paulette has a question as well.
Okay, Paulette, she's on mute.
Yes, if she can.
Can you, there you go.
Okay, last year I was at a planning meeting for another issue, but there was a presentation by a couple to turn one of their houses into this seniors rental so that it would be low income, etc. And it ended up being turned down for many reasons. First of all, they were not good owners. Their property was in disarray, etc. So when it comes to the rental, like with the co-housing, for sure there'd have to be lots of, back checking on how they've been up to date with their rentals. Does that come into play also with this co-housing you're talking about, Glenn? I mean, Gwen?
Are you talking about the renters or the
renters?
The renters themselves?
Yeah.
Yes. We do look at their finances before they come in because we want to ensure they can afford and continue to afford. So yes, that is one of the many things that are looked at before they come in.
Gwen, also, I was mostly talking about the individuals that want to open up a rental co-housing. Mm-hmm. Is there, before, do you get involved in that, or would it be the city? Or, because I know once it goes forward, then if there's a problem, as was mentioned earlier, it's just going to be landlord-tenant type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I know that I'm positive if any house has to be turned into co-housing or anything else, whether it's for seniors or whatever, it has to go through planning. So is that aspect of it looked at?
You're talking about home share, I think, aren't you?
It's rental. They're going to be renting.
It would be similar because it is rental.
Okay.
It might be quite similar, but in the co-housing, there's a bookkeeper that keeps track of all the utilities and everything. Everybody gets a statement at the end of every month with a certain amount set aside for repairs and maintenance. So I think it would be a little different than what you're talking about.
Okay, you're right. After you saying that, I agree. I apologize. I thought that there was kind of a hand-in-hand type of thing, but it's not. Because with the rental that I'm talking about, it's strictly with the owners or the lawyers looking after the owner's property, etc. So I'm sorry, it would be something altogether different. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, that would have to be clarified. So on this issue, Anna Maria, your help, if we wanted to address this particular issue with the city, how do we as a committee, and Tara can help us too, how do we as a committee make a motion or a referral on the issue to the city? To indicate our support of co-housing options for seniors in the community.
So Tara, do you want me to speak to being a member and what I would suggest, and then you speak to process?
Sure, that'd be
Okay,
great.
if that works. So I appreciate the discussion. I'm not clear around maybe the intention, or is it an ask or a motion? So very different things. Are we looking for more information about co-housing? Because we seem to have heavily framed conversations on housing, and planning, but without a member of planning staff that would be advantageous. So is it coming back to the table to provide information, or is it a statement that the committee is looking to make to say, we want to see the city support co-housing opportunities? I guess a couple of frames of reference, and I'll also, acknowledge that I don't have a deep appreciation of past conversations, but I would say, we're talking about great models, one in Barrie. We're talking about, and I think the recent comments, how some municipalities had to go through a steep learning curve around how to make the co-housing model work, and a bit of an aha moment with staff in some areas that I've also heard to say, through work with Shelley, they've actually understood how to apply some of the policies in a way in which that appropriately enables this to happen. So I guess I'll look to Tara for process, but I would comment, I don't know at this time, and I'm not a housing expert, but even through a planning department, are there also asks? So is it just an ask to say, promote it, but I'm thinking about the how. So does the city happen to have resources, and would it be appropriate to showcase an example of co-housing and how co-housing works, and FAQ on co-housing, so that if a developer does come to the table and has an idea in that initial stage, staff have something that this committee would say is appropriate example to inform them that this might be a really beautiful option to consider as they're looking at a development project. So I mentioned that just because we can ask how we're pushing co-housing, but we might get a response that says, we receive what we receive from developers. So maybe it's a different angle about trying to influence and advocate or provide information that we're asking the city to show, if it's appropriate on our website, even an example of how co-housing could be developed.
I think your last point about advocating for it, because when we talked to the planning, we had the planning department in, we listened to information provided to us about the city's plans, and there weren't any real specifics that spoke to options for seniors housing, from the point of view is that those options would be looked at with developers as they came forward with their proposals, as long as it fit within the planning strategy for the city. So everybody else can comment too. I think we're looking for more specifics on advocating for co-housing in Barrie to assist in providing different options for housing for seniors. And others can comment on that. I think there was lack of information. So I think we need more advocacy, because it ties into the last thing that I wanted to talk about was, and maybe we should roll them together, is the city encouraging developers to look at options for seniors complexes in the city, and also for ensuring that housing develops incorporate aging in place options for seniors. So I think it ties with that one as well. So I'll open it to the floor for discussion.
One thing I forgot to mention is density. Barrie wants density. So if you're putting 4, 5, or 6 residents in one home, you're freeing up the house or apartment they came from. So density, the city should definitely be in favor of density. But maybe the planning department, we should ensure the planning department fully understands everything about co-housing, so that if somebody is coming in for permits or whatever, they're not turned away because they didn't know how to use the right phraseology, for instance.
Okay. Sarah, you had a comment.
I'm just thinking that possibly there might be other departments, like even our zoning department, as far as if the property would be zoned to do something like that, as well as our enforcement, because of rental properties and whatnot. They're, you know, you don't want it to end up like because there's the rooming houses and like all that stuff that, you know, they could possibly, you know, be considered. So I think possibly inviting maybe our zoning and enforcement and planning department, maybe to give them a little bit more background on what we're looking for. I'm just not sure how the city can get involved in something like this. It seems more like a provincial.
It's just a house in a residential zone, and they can't dictate who lives in it.
Well, it depends.
I think
I'm not an expert on it, so that's why I prefer to have other staff to.
I'm not sure about the rest of the committee, but I would prefer to stick strictly to ownership in regards to the needs for co-housing in relation to shared accommodations or seniors housing needs in Barrie, because of those complex issues. And maybe two things: we want the planning department to look at co-housing ownership and different seniors options, and then bring back zoning and planning to talk about rental co-housing. Jessica, you're on mute.
No, I was just waiting for my turn there. I'm just wondering, and based on the past couple months of conversations, we're continuously discussing housing, and it seems that I feel like we're circling the same thing. So I'm wondering if we need to look at it that we as a committee are advocating for those meetings to happen, but we aren't the ones that need to be having that meeting because we aren't the specialists. So maybe what we need to be doing is advocating to planning, zoning, or enforcement that they need to be having these meetings with those that are in the community that are specialists like Shelley, and I know there are others in the community that are offering similar services, and that we advocate for those meetings to happen, because unfortunately we are limited in what we can do. And I think that the focus for the Seniors Advisory Committee isn't just solely on housing, it's on the community as a whole. So from the general perspective of, is there a way that we can complete this circle, put forward some advocacy where and how we need it, but maybe move on to some other opportunities in the community as they present themselves.
Yeah, excellent. Anne-Marie?
If I may build on Jessica's comments, I guess I would say perhaps a framing back to staff that asks a couple of questions. You know, the Seniors Committee would like to know what the City of Barrie is able to do around supporting access to housing for seniors. And we would like to know in particular if there's a resource you have on hand that you provide to developers who might be inquiring about co-housing. If you don't, we invite you to reach out to Gwen or others and ask if you could respond to the possibility of posting a resource and how that is shared appropriately when developers are seeking ideas or getting feedback on developments coming in. The other one might be then maybe a full picture that's an easy resource that says, how else is the City of Barrie incentivizing access to housing or more affordable ways in which you can get into and retain housing for seniors. And that then I think bridges to that broader continuum, because there are some really lovely programs, but they do depend on if you have an asset like a house, or if you don't and you're looking to get into and retain a rental market, that we are hearing that people are losing that option as rental rates are changing. So I mention that only because we're still in an engagement process publicly. around the next official plan. So maybe it's worth coming back to say, in review of the initial draft official plan engagement, can you share back ways in which the city is able to leverage policy or incentivize seniors' access to housing in the future?
I like that.
I'm not sure if there's other comments there, but that's where I think we've got an opportunity.
Pat and then Heather. I can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're still on mute.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Anne Marie's idea. Rather than telling the city what we'd like them to do, ask them what they can already do and what they know and what they need. I like that idea. And I also like Jessica's idea of maybe moving on to other forums. But I do like Anne Marie's idea. Let's see what the city knows and what they need.
Okay. Heather?
Yeah, I would almost say I agree word for word with that. I think we need to look at what we can do as a committee and what the city can do, because as was mentioned earlier too, a lot of these things may be outside of what the city is capable of doing. It's a provincial matter. So I really do like the idea of looking for that, information. This is what can we do? What do you need from this committee as far as recommendations? And then I do think that we need to start looking at some of our other topics as well, like transportation, civic involvement. Those kind of things are important for this committee to look at as well.
Okay. All right. So Tara, how do we put that? How do we address that to the various departments that need to have this information so they can get back to us on the question we have? Anne Marie, maybe you can help too.
So if we are going to be directing staff to look at something, we would need council's approval for them to look at stuff like that. It's just the wording. I'd have to look at different ways. Anne-Marie, do you have a suggestion of wording, or do you want for them to investigate?
Yeah, are we asking for an investigate or just a report back? And is there a difference in how that comes back, Tara? Like, could we ask staff to just present back to this table on, an overview of levers that are deliberate, that are going into the next draft official plan that incentivize housing for seniors? And we'd like to know the following things in that report back is, how is co-housing a model that is a familiarity with staff and available in some way to share with developers that are considering different types of seniors housing models.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can engage in that conversation to say, if you don't have it, or if this is what or what actually is happening in that conversation. And if there's not a formal resource, maybe we would advocate that one is developed and maybe public facing for developers to kind of become easily familiar with, but also what are the programs that will continue and or that are being funded after we've come out of the budget that are still committed to incentivizing access to affordable housing. And or in particular, we can make a statement there to say, the Seniors Advisory Committee wants to know what the city is doing deliberately and intentionally tied to access to housing for seniors. Please present back on how this lens actually is incorporated into the draft official plan as it stands, so we know where to give more consultation before that closes, and what resources you have on co-housing. And if you could present that back or where that lives, then we can give you feedback on if we want to promote that changes or is shared differently.
Okay.
Would that match? I think if it's a presentation back.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, if we could get them to just do a presentation or a report back of what the city, what we can actually do. It's probably better in writing, right?
Okay, I would agree with that. I know we've been on this topic, but we've also had a break in our meeting, so we haven't been able to complete the discussion. And I would agree with everybody that we need to come to an end on this because we seem to be going in circles. And the planning department mentioned that the official plan had a 90-day, I thought that 90-day discussion with the public was finished.
It's finished and they're moved into a second phase. So we can send that link out maybe, Tara. So now they've collated all that feedback and now there's a kind of still a next consultation period. So it's not done, but it is in a window of kind of closing out. So it would be good to know and it'd still be able to influence if we could get a presentation back before it closes to say what's sitting in it through all that information you received in. How are we reflected back in that? And in particular, you might want to make the ask specific to housing. Or are there other things that we have given feedback on in that draft official plan that you care about? Like accessibility, like transportation, or maybe a senior's lens. But in the time we have, if considering how much attention this conversation has had in general around housing, you might want to be specific about how that next official plan will drive policy and bylaws, right? And how they support incentivizing housing for seniors.
Okay. All right, Tara, do you, we're throwing a lot at you there.
Yeah, it's,
you think you're okay with what we?
Yeah, I think so. And I can send it back through email and just to get everybody's,
Confirm?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great.
If it's
So,
good. So
is everybody in agreement with what's being, Gwen, you have a question?
No, I just wanted to make one comment that this would work for millennials as well that want to get into the housing market because right now they can't afford it.
no.
So I just wanted to add that. And yes, I'm in agreement. Thank you.
That ties in with that new TV show, Five in a House. What I don't watch it. I just saw the commercial for it. Anyway, okay, so everybody is in agreement and okay with that? Okay. Then maybe we can move on and look at some other topics. And Heather, up in connection with your comments, one of the things I wanted to talk about going forward is we do need to look at what we want to work on for goals this year. But I was wondering about how we as a committee can connect with the community either through meetings or through contacts in this current environment that we have where we can't actually get out and meet people in person. But I would like to know from everybody how they see the committee being able to make more contact in the community and getting feedback from seniors. And I know that, Jessica, you have your program, your weekly program. I'd like to see some kind of interaction via Zoom or via a means that we as a committee can interface with seniors and build that rapport. So I'll open that up to discussion on how we can go about doing that. And Tara, maybe you could start off by helping us know what our restrictions are in that regard. You're on mute. You're on mute. Can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Can't hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
I just wanted to join in and all the counselors and the mayor that they got to join in the pain.
So what are restrictions in that regard?
Sorry, I was doing the item for discussion, so I didn't quite.
Okay, well, one of the things I was concerned about is that we don't have a lot of contact with the community, seniors in the community, and wanted to develop some form of rapport.
Okay.
Where are we limited in that regard?
Unfortunately, with COVID, we are restricted, obviously, to do what we had done in the past. Maybe, I don't know if Jessica has any suggestions of what programming and Cheryl Dillon is the other one that could help as well, but she's not quite doing this. She said she was going to join our meeting at 11 o'clock actually to assist with that. I'm just not sure what the community, how they are engaging with the seniors and whatnot. Jessica, do you have any idea?
Yeah, I think that it depends on how you're looking to engage. Are you looking for feedback from the seniors services organizations in regards to services that are being offered throughout the pandemic, because there are multiple of us that are out there that are already doing it. If you're looking to directly connect with the seniors, I'm not sure, because that's not something that this committee has generally historically done. We've done interaction from being at fairs or June is Seniors Month, and also through the age-friendly portfolio, which again is still moving towards having a survey completed in such that way, even with Cheryl in her new role, with support as staff as we move on. But in general, I would think that you would need, my recommendation would be that you're looking at a purpose of why you're connecting with them. Are you looking for, and what it is that you're looking for? And then we can make a plan in regards to what's the best platforms. Yes, we have senior centers without walls. We also have virtual studios now through Recreation. I know that Heather, and I'm speaking on your behalf, but Heather has great contact through Meals on Wheels and promoting information through for those, as well as the library. But I think we need to know what we're looking to actually do.
Well, back last year, we had engaged you to help make cards to introduce seniors to hand out to seniors, to let them know.
All of that is completed.
There is a seniors advisory committee, and I don't know how many seniors in the community know that we even exist. So I think we need to build on that. We made up a screen, so if we did go to events and people wanted to know who we are, we had that. So I wanted to build on that, because as a committee, we want to be addressing issues that we know relate to what seniors want in the committee, even though we have people in the community that we know and have issues. So I think that we just have to look at the platform in which we're looking to engage. I think that we need to, though, yes, we do have the swag and the postcards and such, we're all completed. It's COVID now. So the way that we were looking to use those aren't typically the way that we can use them now. And I know that many of us, including Colin and Heather, can speak to engaging the seniors community through many different means is not as easy, or it's a little more complicated than it was before. They're not as trusting of what comes in the mail. Some are tech savvy, some are not. Some are phone savvy, some are not. And some are only getting their information via radio and newspaper. So I think that in general, that you would need a plan for moving forward. Okay, Anna Marie, you had a comment, and then Gwen.
Thanks, and I think along the same lines as Jessica is kind of around what are we engaging on, and what are we offering back. And I wanted to suggest, if there's time on the agenda, I've been connecting in with colleagues that sit in the Aurelia Seniors Advisory Committee, and outside of that, also maybe some good knowledge exchange there around some initiatives that they're doing. But also then I think they've got a new initiative that looks at kind of an engagement of the public that might align nicely to what Jessica's involved in with our Seniors Without Walls. But wondering again about, what is our statement? Is it more something down the line when this committee turns over to talk about who we are, what we do, and why you should apply if you're interested in the committee, and get engagement around individuals identifying with us? Or perhaps, something when we're ready is there a question we have, or is there an invitation? So do we use City of Barrie social media, Twitter accounts and Facebook page, and just say, hey, don't forget, you've got a Seniors Advisory Committee. We'd love to hear from you. What are the issues that matter to you as a senior? And we care about, housing and accessibility and transportation. And what are your suggestions for improvements that we can bring to the table for discussion? And then it might just be something that goes out frequently over the next month to see if we get any suggestions and then bring them forward.
Okay, Gwen?
We looked at our membership in November, and we realized we had 418 members out of over 3,000 that we did not have contact information for. 71 we didn't even have phone calls. So we phoned everybody we had a phone number for, and we sent out 71 letters to let them know that we were still around, still there for them, etc. If they had an email, would they give it to us so that we could do presentations, etc. So I was thinking, How about a postcard insert into the Barrie Advance with a questionnaire attached? Because the Barrie Advance reaches most people.
Mhm.
And I was thinking we could just do a postcard that they could take out and throw in the mail with, and just check off their answers or write in something. Maybe that would be a good way to get feedback from them.
I think we just have to watch costs associated, because there are costs,
Yes.
costs associated with us putting it in the Barrie Advance or doing a mail drop. A mail drop is super expensive. Though efficient, it's just that it wouldn't be something that we could do community wide. And then there's also the cost of them returning it. So then that would be a fee for service as well, right? So, you know, if we get to the point where we know what it is that we're looking to do or looking to engage, there are many different platforms that the city has, from social media to buildingbarrie.ca, keeping in mind that the age friendly is going out. I know that Cheryl, as she's changed roles, but is still we're still advocating for that survey to go through, and that might just have some engagement components that you're looking for in regards to where there could be holes in the community, as well as benchmarking it to our last age friendly. I just think we need to be aware of what we're reaching out for.
Okay. Would it be possible to even do, like, the city does that 2-page spread where they put all the information in regards to what's happening in Barrie, even a small little intro in there about the Seniors Advisory Committee, and we meet monthly, and that anyone wishing to attend the meeting can attend it. Oh, we can't really do that though, can we? We did open it up to let people come and sit. But maybe some way by starting by just introducing the committee again to let people know we are actually here. Anne Marie?
Oh, sorry, and I saw Colin, so I didn't want that to get missed. So a couple of things came to mind. You know, one where I used to have a portfolio around health and seniors, and would partner with MPPs on their Seniors Day. So maybe it's also something where we might want to do a friendly reach out to Andrea and Doug Downey and see if they're doing a virtual town hall. I've seen some happening on other topics around seniors, and partnering with them, or even saying it might take a different shape if you're going virtual, but we would love to be part of, you know, a shout out. Can we join a Zoom panel if you're going to host it, to talk a bit about Seniors Advisory Council in Barrie, what we're doing, what we're moving forward. And then I think it's a nice engagement approach that already won't cost us anything and might get a broad view. The other piece I'm thinking about is also around, what are we asking? So when we do engagement, there's also that responsibility about, if it's just generic, what are we doing with the information we're receiving if it's not specific to a topic? So I would say, what do we first get to those conversations like Pat and Heather had spoken to about our broader agenda? You know, would we want to hypothetically table something to council? And if we do we want to actually use our public to get some buy-in or feedback on that? Is there something about transit, free transit, or changing the cost of transit or a transit pass for something that we'd like to see more accessibly done? Is there a change in bylaw or policy or an initiative we actually want buy-in from council? And then we can engage publicly on that through other parts. We could host, if this is not out of scope, forgive me, Tara and Jessica, an event that would get captured in our Barrie events calendar. That might be a Zoom conversation. Hey, we are the Seniors Advisory Committee. We want to talk about transportation. Here are a couple of individuals that are going to speak about their experience with public transit. What happens when you lose access to your license? What it's like to get around the city? What feedback do you have? What do you care about around transit accessibility and getting around, right? So the cost of a taxi cab to the hospital, the cost of, you know, what routes would you like to see improvements on, or what's your experience around getting around the city? And that then can have a value tied to addressing a particular issue, having a particular conversation with people that are interested on that, and then feeding it back to different departments.
Okay. I think that's a great idea. I was also thinking about the wards. Each ward has a Zoom meeting with the constituents. If somehow we could introduce ourselves at those ward meetings that they set up, would also be a good way to start off by just introducing the committee. and then go from there. I think one of our biggest problems as a committee is that we in our terms of reference, we don't really have any decision-making power, if you want to say that. We are a committee that can look at issues and can make statements, but we really can't make decisions on issues per se. We can only address them by referring it to a department within the city to be looked at. And so I think, Kara, you were going to say something?
Sorry, no, it's just Lucia and Paulette have been waiting for a
Okay.
while.
All right, so let's go with, can't see Lucia. Oh, there she is. Oh, that's a pretty picture. Okay, Lucia and then Jessica, is it? No, who else? Who?
Colin.
Paula.
Oh, Paula, okay. So Lucia,
End up as well.
Yeah, hi, it's Lucia here. So my comment goes back from a while ago now because my hand was up for a while. So it seems it's going to sound a little tardy. But just around managing expectations, Gwen, you mentioned using the Barrie Advance and so forth. And Jessica, I don't know who is in charge actually of the center page with city events. A lot of people aren't getting the paper delivered to the door. It's being left down at the base, basically in the road. So I haven't been able to get my paper for a month. I get my snow plowed, right? But the plastic bag is great because it disintegrates quite quickly. However, all the newspaper just goes, it's covered up in snow. So we are assuming that people are getting their paper, and I really don't think a lot of people are getting it these days. So I just wanted to manage some expectations around the city, is putting this great big spread in, and I don't think people are even seeing that. My thoughts on that, for what they're worth.
okay. Who is next? Paulette?
Hello.
Hi.
You were talking about getting info out to the seniors. The Barrie News at 6 o'clock every single day, they have somebody doing interviews for different things. A lot of it is COVID, but perhaps we could approach the Barrie News station and ask perhaps that we could have be interviewed. Well, at least when I was at the senior center, many of them, that's the big 6 o'clock thing. They sit and watch the Barrie News. And that's, I feel, a good way to be able to connect and to promote. And all it takes is really a phone call to see if, yes, they would do an interview or no, they wouldn't be able to.
Okay, that's a good. Carol?
Colin
Carol
has.
Okay.
He's been waiting for a bit too. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, Colin, go ahead.
Hi. So I think a couple of things. One is that there needs to be a call of action, whatever we put out there, because it can't just be, hi, we're looking for feedback. It's got to be, this is happening, get engaged, which is what Anne Marie was talking about. I love the idea of the town halls, as long as they see not just, because I see those town hall twos, those town halls, and I think, well, what would I do there? Or why would I go? There has to be like a reason for people to engage with it, and a simple way that they know that they can engage, that this one is specific to seniors' concerns, and this is what we're talking about, and we want to hear your opinion on these kinds of things. The other thing is that we're doing a lot of Facebook advertising, which is not that expensive, and you can really target specific areas with it. So that's an option. If we wanted to get it out further, then the methods that, say, the MPPs are using. And I apologize, I have a family thing that I have to attend to this afternoon, so I have to leave the meeting. Great to see you all. Thank you.
Okay, I agree with what Colin is saying. So there are lots of options of what we could do to engage the public, but we do have to have the topic for discussion that we want to engage them with. And this, I know way back before COVID, we set like a plan for our goals and objectives for the committee. And that's something I think we need to revisit, because we started with housing, but never got it really accomplished because of the breaks and the COVID-19. So I'm hoping that what we discussed today with the housing will sort of terminate that discussion for the majority of the discussion, and then we can get on to other issues as a committee. So I'm going to get to Gwen in a minute, but I'd like to open the floor for what discussion the committee would like to have if we did get into town halls. What would be our focus? Because we have to have a focus that we want to bring feedback for discussion. So Gwen and then Jessica.
I actually wanted to go back to transportation. I have been asking for a long time if we could use a central parking lot, such as at the Sears building, where people could drive to leave their car and catch a bus to the hospital because of the prohibitive parking at the hospital. And I would really like the city to look into that.
That's a great question, Jessica. And then Anne-Marie.
I'm going to defer to Anne-Marie because I think she can directly respond to Gwen's question. Mine is back.
Okay, well, you had something else you wanted to talk about, right? Okay, well, Anne-Marie and then Jessica. Okay.
If it's appropriate, I'll take Gwen's comment and see if I can shape it into a next step. We've been having some conversations at different tables about transport and that type of conversation through our parking strategy as well. So I'd say Little Lake and the medical center and other pieces. So I'm wondering if Tara's still on the line, do we naturally report up to city building?
No, actually we report to finance and corporate services,
Finance,
I believe.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not sure if this topic though potentially lands better in the mandate for city building. So while we don't report up, I'm wondering if it's a question to city building around or you shape the best next step, but I think we can move it to tied to the parking strategy and accessible transportation. Is there a dialogue happening that looks at access and affordable access and timely access to the hospital? Or to like a key area like the hospital? There might be others, Gwen. And you know, where can we promote looking at or exploring options for shuttles or different transit services? So I'm not sure if that's staff in transit or tied to our parking strategy, but that came up when we were doing some broader conversations a couple of months back around shuttles and access and accessibility.
Great.
Okay.
We could do a motion for that for them to investigate if you like.
Want to do a motion?
Okay. So, all right. So Tara, could you maybe while we have a quick discussion, you could phrase a motion for us?
I'll try.
Okay.
To.
So can we go back to what as a committee would we want in forms for discussion with our community? What would we want to be addressing? We have to have a focus. So transportation could be a focus, or community programs could be a focus, but then Jessica's already doing that. So
I'm just wondering if the agenda captures this, or if we're having a conversation that's not going to be captured in the minutes. Maybe this is a discussion for our next meeting, just because I know that if it's not on the agenda, then it's not minutes or actionable items from there. I know Tara's told me that before. So I'm wondering if you know, we identify this as a goal, because I do see that you had added to the thing about seniors goals, that we identify this as a goal with more discussion to follow at our next meeting. I just don't want our ideas to get lost and not have the follow through that we would want them to have, because it's not already captured on the agenda for those that are tuning in.
Okay, so can I just, before I go to Anne Marie, then maybe the issue would be that our goal for this year would be to develop community engagement for the committee. And we'll bring that back to the next meeting for further discussion. Would that be okay if I phrased it that way? Okay, so then Anne Marie, you had a comment?
It was a bit on that, and what I was going to offer is I've got some conversations coming up in the community, but we've also got a new community well-being and safety officer through Barrie Police Services. I'm also hearing from members of council that police are a common stakeholder that's been joining the town halls. So I would say think about that as we come back to maybe an agenda around the conversations. We're doing some direct engagement with them around, so for instance, in my next newsletter to the ward, I'll be asking, what are your top 3 safety concerns in the ward? And I'll be then sharing that back, and that will be part of then informing the dialogue when we have our next town hall. But perhaps whether it's carving out time on town halls, which that are based on the schedule of the councillors, or do you want to have a very direct conversation on a number of topics and link that to where individuals are going for town hall? So the YouTube page for the city of Barrie, where all of our committees are recorded, is there a panel conversation we want to have with police on safety and well-being? So everything from elder abuse to if you're living alone. Hypothetically, would Jessica be on the panel to talk a bit about the Seniors Without Walls? And then you could have a nice complement that's specific to your topic, but isn't compromised by a broader agenda, which is usually Q&A at a town hall.
Okay. The one thing I find with town halls, and I attended the last meeting with the 2 MPPs, like Chipley and Doug Downey, there was only 10 people in the community that actually attended, which was very disappointing. Because as a committee, we want to reach seniors in the community and you're only getting 10 people, you're not getting a good cross-section of people's concerns. So I'm just putting that out there, and we can open that discussion when we talk next time about this goal. But that is a concern to me that we will not get a lot of seniors. The other thing I was wondering is if there would be an option to have involved with the library, because there are a lot of people that do the different sessions with the library when they put out their calendar for discussion. And I wondered if we could maybe, Tara, just put in connection to our community engagement, maybe just put a subtitle for library, and we can discuss whether the library might be another option, because so many people do engage with that. Hi, Cheryl. And we know that Cheryl's going to be developing her age-friendly plan, so I think that's another area that we probably would get feedback. So is Cheryl going to say something, or did she disappear? Oh, there she is. Hi, Cheryl. How's your age-friendly plan going? She can't hear me.
Hi. It's not my age-friendly plan. It's the community's age-friendly plan, and it's and yours included. So I'm not developing anything. So it's the community feedback and whatever. And we, I don't know if I'm on the agenda. So if I'm on the agenda, I'll talk to it. But if I'm not, then I won't.
You're not on the agenda. So
okay.
Can we bring you back to the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We need to know where, that's part of the same topic for our goals. So I think we need to include you in that.
Perfect.
I don't know how many are there any other issues that the committee wants to bring forward for this meeting that we have on our agenda so we can discuss it? If not, we can defer to our next meeting. Gwen and then Anne Marie.
Yes, if we could at the next meeting discuss maybe the possibility of continuing the flat rates for hydro, because I know seniors want to do their laundry in the daytime, not at night. So I'm wondering if that could be added.
Okay, that might be a topic for community engagement.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that's something that this committee actually can
do anything
address.
about.
So though we can advocate for it, it's not within our powers on that.
Okay. Anne Marie?
Thinking about 2 other agenda items if the group's aligned. One is, because I'm hearing a lot about mandate. So I'm wondering if there's a quick look at what we can influence and who our key stakeholders are. So can we do letter writing to MPPs on issues that are outside of what the city can influence, and how best do we use the city structure. But although we're not a decision-making table, let's talk about the value that we have around influencing and having a voice and amplifying the voice of others. So are there recommendations we need to be moving forward? And perhaps we can look at a deliberate step when we come back to that seniors plan, but also then, you know, of our three things, if this is in our work plan, what statement can we make, and what do we want to see progress on, and who's our audience for influencing? And then maybe having a conversation about what we can do that aligns to our some of the initiatives we want to push. The other piece I'm hoping, I'll come back to you if you've got a question about that, Donna, but there's another piece I'd like to put on the agenda.
No, you go ahead. I just wanted to make a comment that we had at the beginning of the committee when we started. Tara, we had a lady come and explain what the committee could and couldn't do. There was someone that went over those questions that you had, and I wondered if it might be a good refresher to, at the next meeting before we start the meeting, is to maybe just have that individual. Who was the lady? I'd have to go back and look. There was a gentleman that started us off, but there was a lady that came and
We
Was it
have the
you?
notes. I believe we have the notes that were.
Yeah,
handed-
it went. Jeff Carswell, he was the one when we
Yeah.
started.
There was another lady.
and then Wendy Cook, who was our city clerk, she was going to, and
Yeah.
then I filled in for her.
Right.
So,
So I think if either recirculate the notes on what we can and can't do, and
Yeah,
then
of course.
maybe just maybe at the beginning of the meeting, you could just review those quickly, and we could look at any questions in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Anne Marie, you had another agenda item you wanted to add?
Yes, if I can give an update on some activities with the Active Transportation and Sustainability Advisory Committee that I sit on. So it might be of interest to the group. If you didn't watch that committee meetings last session, we talked a bit about improving our city website around information that would support engaging individuals in physical activity and in walkable aspects of our city and connectedness. And so there's some work happening there, but we also, I think, agreed in concept to exploring what it would take to actually have Barrie be designated a walkable city. And so there are some deliberate next steps happening there that might be really exciting. I'm not sure where committees collide or kind of cross-pollinate or meet on like opportunities, but I think there would be momentum over the next month or two to actually invite a member of Active Transportation forward to talk a bit about, you know, what we're looking at doing around creating more resources on our city website, but also this promotion to, you know, how we can mobilize community around becoming designated a walkable city. And that might be a really shared engagement opportunity, because we've been talking about tactics, but we haven't been talking about purpose. And so maybe there's something there that ties to our work plan, but also I think the Accessibility Committee has gone forward with a grant that's specific to seniors. So maybe there's an opportunity to look at what are some shared areas that we're working on that we can support each other on and really push some progress and engagement.
That's great. Actually, I would agree with you on that, because I think that the walking paths that the bicycle paths that they're putting in, I had some concerns about scooters and other types of mobility things that seniors use, that I had concerns about those, the width of those and where they're located. So I think that would be a good thing to bring that information back. And I had a question for Tara in regards to your speaking at our meeting. Is there a way of putting Anne Marie as a regular to bring back feedback to us at each meeting on what she might have in her discussions with the city or the committee that would be a benefit to us? Is there a way of like putting her on the agenda so that we don't have to feed her back every week, like we defer her because she's not on the agenda?
Would it be
we can
better?
do yeah, like we can do a standing item, but it has to be somewhat specific. You can't just like random topics and stuff that's going on.
How about if something comes up that's relevant? I make sure that maybe there's a reminder in my calendar about when it needs to feed to yourself, Donna, as chair, and Tara as an item, so it can
Yeah,
capture
that would be-
the agenda.
Okay.
That would be good. And then that way, because when you give us a tidbit, we want to hear more.
Yeah.
The tease.
I
Okay.
have I've put in, I think in my calendar for like 2 weeks prior to setting up the agendas.
Okay.
And I can send an email out to everybody as a reminder for agenda items and stuff like that. I'm trying to do 2 weeks instead of the week of. So
Okay. So did you have that motion that we, or?
I believe so.
Okay, do you want to read it out and then we'll get everybody's agreement?
Sure. So that staff in the traffic and parking strategy department investigate the feasibility of offering shuttle services for seniors to the Royal Victoria Health Center due to current parking restrictions, something like that. I wouldn't, if there's
Okay.
more to add, if
Costs.
Gwen, costs, okay,
Costs.
due to current costs and parking restrictions.
Right. Okay.
So we saw the rates go up that are city lots, right? Adjacent, they're not RVH parking, but they were adjacent and they were the less expensive rates. And we've also seen Little Lake as an area where we've got a medical center where we might have some parking that, so maybe it's something around, is there any data or information they have that would suggest the benefit of promoting a pilot or a shuttle service to support access to the hospital? But maybe it's a conversation with the hospital they want to be reaching out to as well.
Okay. Do you want to put like other services, other facilities,
Well,
medical
just look at
centers?
options to assist seniors so that they can go to the hospital and who are not able to afford the cost of parking. So we want to look at different options in relation to the hospital. Pat and then Cheryl.
Are you limiting this to the hospital? Because I've heard
That's
the
what I'm,
health center mentioned a few times as well, and they've now got very restricted parking.
okay. And so to the Royal Victoria
Other
Health,
facilities,
and what, sorry?
RVH and other facility, other health
Other
facilities.
Medical facilities.
medical facilities?
Okay. Cheryl?
Sorry, I'm late on this conversation. And I'm just questioning whether or not right now is the time to make such a motion, given that there are no visitors to the hospital anyway. So the only reason why a senior should be going to the RVH is because they have a medical appointment. And currently our Barrie Transit, our public transit has an express bus that is going directly to RVH. And we also have a specialized transit that provides door to door destination kind of delivery. And because the RVH parking, I know it's a big thorn in everybody's side, but it is an income generator for that facility. It is an income generator for a number of hospitals within the province. Like that is a mechanism that the health care providers in our province use to support things. And given the year that we're in, I'm just not certain, like maybe keep this motion as an idea. I think the shuttle bus is a great idea, but maybe put it in a parking lot, pun intended, until maybe later in the spring, because right now we're just as of last Tuesday in the red zone. So we're not having active visiting and any of that kind of movement in the hospital centers anyway. So like, obviously, Councillor Kungl will know better from a motion like perspective, like how the motion's going to move through council, because it's got to go to I think Finance and Corporate Services Committee, and then, or maybe another committee, and then general, like, I don't know how long it'll take, but I'm just wondering of the timing, like what, from a support perspective, if you're going to get a lot of support for this motion right now. Not to say that it's not a great idea. I think it's a great idea, but you might have some barriers, some opposition, is what I'm thinking.
Okay, Carol?
I'm just like, we're not asking them to do it. We're just asking them to look at it. So, you know, and they have other projects and whatnot too. So who's to say?
Sure, absolutely. I just like, I just feel like the knee-jerk reaction is going to be no, based, like that's going to be the investigation based on a number of barriers. Like, whereas timing, like if we waited a month or two, maybe the timing would be more on our side, kind of thing. But I don't know. Councillor Kungl will have a better idea.
Anne-Marie?
I mean, great points made, because we were also, even in our discussion, kind of changing the scope and motion. So I'm wondering about, rather than it being a motion that's very directive and staff will look to the scope of that motion to figure out what we're asking. And it could become a make work project or something that there's not resources for. You know, is it a presentation back where we can have dialogue with a member of the team on, we know you're rolling out a new parking strategy. We know you're adopting technology to do that, different apps. We know you're piloting, you know, different transit route changes. What information do you have that you think would be most important for us to appreciate around how seniors access transit, if it's affordable, if there's something there that we can do to support adoption of transit and ridership, but also, you know, are you seeing and do you have any information that would be valuable for us to know about difficulties where people have complained about transit, or difficulties where individuals are accessing medical appointments or grocery stores or those necessities? And maybe from there, we can dialogue more freely with a member of that staff, and then also look at feeding into our work plan. What do we care about? Do we take a position on something? Are we going to advocate for some type of change, or see what's possible? And if it means that, you know, a staff member coming back to the table after certain parts of that strategy are implemented.
I'm going to recommend that.
Can I just jump in? Just to jump in. Currently, on the current age-friendly plan is an item around a community bus for older adults in Barrie. There's no specification on how that community bus, that shuttle bus, would be used, just the exploration that would happen. And I know our transit staff are open to that. They just haven't nailed down anything. So maybe this is an opportunity, like, so maybe it is a shuttle bus that goes to the hospital, but maybe it also goes to, you know, like Georgian Mall. Like, I don't know, like exactly, but like it is currently in the the age-friendly plan we currently have. That is an item. So you certainly would be within your realm as a committee to have staff come and talk to you about that, with or without a motion.
Yeah.
Okay. So can I recommend that we, like, for Tara to get this clear, is to bring it back to the next meeting. And Tara, if you need clarification on it, maybe you could send Anne-Marie and myself what you are going to put on there for a statement for us to agree to as a committee. And then, so that we get it clear in wording. All right. And then we'll bring it back to the committee, because I see a lot of ideas jumping around, and you're the one that has to put together the wording so that we can all agree to it. So in fairness to you, I think we need to bring it back to the next meeting and put it on as an agenda item. Okay.
And at that time, I can invite staff,
right,
as well to attend, to give, you know, some type of information. We just need to give them an idea of what we're looking for.
Sure, that's a great idea, Tara. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Okay. Is there anything else that individuals want to bring to the table in regards to bringing things forward at our next meeting? No?
Yeah, just take a moment to clarify that next step. So Donna, are we moving forward with Tara inviting a member of Transit Services to present back at the next meeting? And perhaps within that scope to talk a bit about, at this time, do staff have any suggestions or ideas around how we might move forward with our initiative tied to a community bus? And then from there, out of that discussion, frame a next step?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then if the committee has questions, they can ask them directly to staff, and then will we do whatever statement we want to propose back to them. If it needs clarification at that time, we will have the information based on the discussion to clarify it. So I think that would work. Is everybody in agreement with that?
And if anybody wants to send me an email or something with any questions, I can always forward that to staff ahead of time too, so they are prepared.
When?
I'm wondering if at one of our meetings, we could have somebody come and talk to us about the storefront for drugs. It's all over the paper and everything now, but it's not explicit. And I've been asked to have CARP, our logo on it, and I don't know enough.
I don't even.
Gwen, do you mean, are you talking about the supervised consumption site?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm happy to have a phone call with you if you want some background context on that too, if you'd like. But I can also, Tara, perhaps there's, for those interested about the status of a supervised consumption site, the Simcoe Muskoka District Public Health website has a great resource online, and it covers everything from the committee that's working on locations and the status of that, and really doing some good education about what it is and what it is not, to make sure that that's clear. I can send you the link, Tara, if you don't have it on
Okay,
hand.
I was going to say I can get the link and send it to
Yeah.
everybody if they like.
And then for anyone that still has questions, I can connect you with the right contact at the health unit and those that are involved in the process forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other issues that you want brought forward in future meetings, Jessica?
It's not really an issue, but I just thought just before we got to the end of the meeting, I just wanted to give a quick update that moving forward for the meetings, if there's anything in relation to recreation and culture, things like that, then I will be joining the meetings. Otherwise, I may not be such a regular feature sitting here, but I'm here as needed and can be reached out to any time as seniors. It's just with the focus around what it is that I do with community building and seniors and recreation and culture. Sometimes these discussions aren't directly related. So definitely, Tara will let me know ahead of time if there's something on the agenda that I can move forward with, but I won't always be at each meeting.
The one thing that I would appreciate is an update on during COVID. I know that you have your weekly seniors conference, telephone conference, but I have an update on as we change into different zones, how that will impact the seniors programs in Barrie. I just
to the Senior Centers Without Walls.
Yeah,
the Senior Centers Without Walls is our daily interaction program that's done via the phone call, and that won't be changing even when we do reopen up.
Okay.
If you're looking for an overall commentary in regards to where recreation and culture stands in regards to the different levels and what we have open and not, I can definitely provide that. I just need, if you just have it as added to the agenda, then I can join for that portion of the meeting to provide that update.
Right. Okay. So I think that would be good for all of us to know in the different zones how that will affect your recreation activities for seniors. So are you going to be at our next meeting, do you think?
If I'm on the if it's on the agenda, then yes, I will be at the next meeting.
Okay.
Just as a quick update, the Senior Centers in-person programming isn't scheduled to be reviewed for opening probably until about the fall.
Wow. Okay.
And that's just due to where we stand now and the increased awareness. And I think that we're just erring on the side of caution.
Okay.
We want to make sure that when we open for good. It's not open and then close and then open and then close. So especially with that demographic and ensuring that we can safely do it and that we're in a position that allows us to do that. So For the time being, that's where we stand. It's to be evaluated at any point, but that's where we are right now.
Also, is there anything, if we put you on the agenda, is there anything else that you're doing to help, especially vulnerable seniors in the community, that you can let us know about?
Well, the Senior Centers Without Walls, that's what it was built for, is barrier-free participation for anybody within the community as well as outside the community at this point during COVID. I also know that Heather can speak to what the Barrie Senior Services Network is doing, and any of the updates that we have from there. So, you know, if it's on the agenda, I can definitely pop in.
Can you put that on our agenda item as updates on seniors, reaching seniors in the community, and put Jessica down to start on that? Okay, thank you. All right, anything else from anybody?
Before that happens too, I think there's that media release that went out through City of Barrie that might be good to circulate, that does talk a bit about changes to recreation services and access. So I'm sending that to you now, Tara, if you don't have that on hand. And maybe that can go with the other one with the supervised consumption site.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can send that as well.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Boy, oh boy, seems like we caught up on a lot of information. We had some good discussion there, so that's great. So we'll, our next meeting date would be when, Tara? Just so we can confirm.
Just let me open my calendar here.
I think it's
March
22nd.
I think it is. Yes, March 22nd at 10 a.m.
Okay. Great. Okay, so we'll look forward to having see everybody then. Any other last comments? No? Okay.
Great discussion.
Great. Yeah, really good discussion. Thank you, everybody, so much. Nice to see you all back. Take care.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you, Anne-Marie.
Sarah.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
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 Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.